Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Nothing But Bangers, aka MBB, aka Bangers, and I've got an incredible video ready for you today. I'm going to be giving you some of the best budget decks as well as some of the best new decks with some modifications for ranked that's going to be releasing right after the next reset. So literally for me, as of the recording of this video, in about 7 hours, ranked is going to be live, and I will be live streaming on YouTube and Twitch, trying to become the first person to reach the Master Ball level. So I'm not stopping until we get to Master Ball. That is my goal. Now, this might take 7 hours. I'm down. Okay. If we get to a point where we feel like we're just hard stuck, then I'll probably stop and call it a day. But I'm prepared to go 12 hours. And I'm going to show you some of the decks that I will be using for this race. So let's get to it. Each deck that I show is going to have a breakdown of where the cards come from, as well as how many pack points are needed to complete the deck. I'm going to start off with the newest version of Blaine and kind of give you a little bit of a little bit of an explanation for these cards and why I have this deck up here. Blaine is a great budget deck for people that are just now coming back to the game and maybe have old cards and then open up a few new packs. The main idea is that instead of using Ponyta Rapidash, you're using Magmar, and you still have Blaine to fix damage, as well as you now have the new card, which is called Red, which is going to do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX. So this deck can rip through Dialga, it can rip through Beedrill, it can rip through a lot of those grass types that you may see like Serebii, Leafeon, Exeggutor, Yanmega, and it can also rip through cards like Manaphy before Manaphy really snowballs out of control. And I use that term in every one of my videos and all of my streams lately, but snowball basically means that once they get going, the game becomes like very hard to win. So again, like Magmar being able to increase its damage to 50 with Blaine one-shots the Manaphy. If they have Cape, well, they just kind of got you, right? They're going to get at least one turn to ramp. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, Ninetales is able to do up to 120, but it can also do 111 with Red. And there will be situations where you actually use Red instead of Blaine with Ninetales, and you save your Blaine because it's going to be able to get the KO, and so you're able to save your Blaine. So that way, hey, if they bring in like a non-EX, you're still able to do 120. So this is a really good budget deck. Now, obviously, it's going to have, limits and problems with some of the top decks as well, but it's a deck that you could use to climb and even do some of the solo battles with for a relatively cheap cost. This deck is a budget deck, but this is going to be one of my first go-tos for climbing with ranked. This is Rampardos without Lucario. And although I could play 2 reds to take the place of Lucario, I'm only playing 1 red, and I'm playing 1 Iono from the newest set. The reason why Iono works very well with this deck is that there's a lot of times that you're missing pieces of your fossil line, and you start to accumulate cards in your hand. I've been able to activate Iono and draw 5 and 6 cards and just completely swing the game into my favor because all of my attacks are very cheap, and hitting that evolution at the right time, I can end the game on the spot or swing the game right away. So Iono is really good for this deck, and Red can take the place of Lucario against some of those EXs. Now, there are going to be some games where maybe you're playing against an opposing Lucario and your Sudowoodo and your Red is like not very good. And hopefully you're able to get pretty good value out of your Hitmonlees, your Marshadow, and eventually your Rampardos. If Druddigon becomes a very popular Pokemon, which we are starting to see in the early tournaments, Hitmonlee is going to be fantastic for going around Druddigon and applying pressure to your opponent's bench, while also still being a cheap attack where you can still build up and charge Pokemon on your bench. This deck is fantastic. It features only, it actually only features a couple cards from the newest set, which that's also very helpful. And if I scroll down, you can see those 2 cards on the list. But this is a complete breakdown of every card that is needed for this deck. And again, I do call this a budget deck because it's only 1,300 pack points, 1,360, right? And it doesn't have any EX Pokemon. Very good deck, and I think it lines up very well into the meta currently. I will not be surprised to see this deck win a big tournament this upcoming weekend. The next deck that I'm going to be talking about is the Water 18 trainer decks. And you can play these with either Articuno or Palkia, and this is a maximum greed list. I'll give you a couple of card suggestions that maybe you might want to change, but I like this list as is, and one of the reasons why I like this deck is it allows you to jam games very quickly. You're not going to have a lot of long, drawn-out games with this deck, and you're going to know relatively very early if you're winning or losing, and this is going to be one of the big reasons why I like this deck for ranked, because I'm going to be able to jam a lot of games and not worry about, oh man, I need my stage 2 and so on. I'm going to know pretty quickly who's in control of the game, and like if I'm just flipping tails with Misty and they're already ahead. So again, I call this kind of sort of a budget deck because it only requires 2 EXs and a lot of old cards. The only new cards that you'll see in this deck are going to be Red and Team Rocket Grunt. Team Rocket Grunt creates a lot of unfair games where, let's just say you're playing Palkia instead of Articuno. There's the potential for you to, go first, right? And you open Palkia and you pass. Well, your opponent's going to attach an energy, and then on your turn, you can Rocket Grunt that energy away, attach to Palkia, and now you've got momentum. On the flip side, there's the potential for you to go second. If you go second with Palkia, you can hit for 30, and then on their turn they do whatever. And if they attach a Pokemon to the active Pokemon or an energy to the active Pokemon, Team Rocket Grunt can discard that energy, and suddenly you have 2 energy and they have 0, right? So there's a lot of potential with this. I do play 1 Sabrina, 1 Red, 1 Mars, 1 Cyrus. It's a toolbox of supporters. And you'll notice I'm being very greedy with this list. I'm only playing 1 Pokeball, and I'm basically saying that I'm going to be able to defend my Palkia or Articuno and protect it from being KO'd. You'll notice also I do play 2 Giant Capes as opposed to 2 Giant Capes as well as 2 Rocky Helmets. I'm only playing 1 Rocky Helmet because, in my opinion, I'm going to want my Pokemon to survive longer, and I should be able to still deal damage. You could obviously change that if you want. As we move forward to some of the other decks in this list, they're going to be a little bit more expensive in terms of being able to put them together. They're going to contain maybe just as many EXs, but I would classify these as not necessarily budget decks because some of these do require like 2 new EXs. The first deck I'm going to be talking about is 14 Trainer Beedrill. All you're doing is playing 2 of the Beedrill line. You're playing 0 Pokeballs because if you get 1 Weedle, you're able to search the other Weedle and put it on your bench. That's the ability of that attack, right? Kakuna is a very good card that can disrupt strategy in combination with Team Rocket Grunt. If you're able to paralyze your opponent's active Pokemon and stop them from doing like a turn that would really impact your game state, that's massive. Also, if you're able to Team Rocket Grunt them, say it's something like a Dialga, now their Dialga may not even be able to ramp even if you miss the paralyze. Basically, Kakuna and Team Rocket Grunt give you the potential chance to basically make your opponent pass their turn and not do any kind of attack. And that's massive. Then, next turn, if you do have the Beedrill, you're able to completely swing the game into your favor and start applying a lot of pressure. I'm only playing 1 Pokemon Communication because, simply put, sometimes you just don't have a lot of Pokemon to activate the card, and so I have it as a 1-of. I am playing double Erica, so that way I can keep my Beedrill alive longer, and I'm also playing Giant Cape. So there's a potential for you to use 2 Ericas and Giant Cape on your Beedrill, and that's going to essentially make 1 Beedrill 310 HP. That's incredible. In the event that they're able to knock out your Beedrill, you do have Mars to really set them back and take away their options as you get your second Beedrill ready to go. Iono is also a card that I like in this deck to help me find my Beedrill line. Iono and Pokemon Communication as 1-ofs, in my opinion, make this very likely that you're going to be able to find your Beedrill line. outside of those cards that I've just gone over, I think this deck is very strong. There are going to be games where you just straight up lose because you don't find Beedrill in time. And those games are, in my opinion, slightly unlucky because I do think that there's a pretty high percentage chance that you do have Beedrill on the turn that you're able to evolve it. Or if you're not able to, you should have at least one more turn after that to have great odds to have it on that turn. So again, 14 Trainer Beedrill, I think it's a decent deck. I think it's got a lot of disruption, and it's got a lot of keys that could make it a successful deck, not only for ranked, but also for tournament gameplay. Now we're getting to the expensive decks, right? This is Darkrai Giratina, a deck that I think is very good and has a lot of potential because it can snowball out of control. In the event that you actually open the trifecta, which would be Druddigon in the active, Darkrai on the bench, and Giratina on the bench, I believe that allows you to have a very explosive game plan, and it forces your opponent to really try to either get around Druddigon or deal with Druddigon very quickly. If you go first and you open that trifecta, you're able to ramp your Giratina. Next turn, I would assume that you're only playing Dark Energy. You could try to be spicy, but I'm only playing Dark Energy in this deck. And I would attach a Dark Energy to my Darkrai and then use Giratina's ability. And suddenly on turn 3 of the game, I have 3 energies on the board, 2 on my Giratina, 1 on my Darkrai, and a Druddigon in the active. The Pokemon tools are just toolbox cards. You're either increasing your HP and basically making it to where you can't get one hit KO, or you're putting a Rocky Helmet on a Pokemon, so that way you're able to put something into a potential one hit KO range. 2 Leafs are essential. You also have 2 Reds instead of 1 red, 1 Giovanni. The main reason I put red in this deck is I believe I can KO non-EXs relatively easy, but I do want to make sure that when I need red, I have it in my deck and in my hand, best case, right? Because again, playing 2 copies of that card makes you see it more often, and hopefully by the time you're ready to attack, in a pivotal moment, you have red. 1 Sabrina, 1 Cyrus, pretty standard, so that way you can go ahead and bring things off the bench that maybe has damage, or maybe you're using Sabrina in some sort of defensive fashion, or Sabrina because they only have 1 Pokemon on their bench. This deck is great in my opinion, and it's going to be a contender. It's already doing pretty well in tournaments, and I really think that it has a future. The other way that you could play this deck is with Magnezone. However, I did not necessarily put that into this video, but that's definitely a way to play Darkrai as well alongside Giratina. Or excuse me, that's a way to play Druddigon alongside Giratina. So that's definitely potential, but I like this deck quite a bit. The last deck that I'll go over in this video, and again, I want you to make sure that you hit that subscribe button or hit that thumbs up or drop a comment. That helps my videos get out there to more people. I would love to see you in the live stream as we try to become the fastest person to reach Master Ball later on. And in this deck, you are playing the standard Giratina Dialga deck, the Arceus Dialga deck, and basically you're just adding basically a new card in the form of red. The other changes that are very notable is the fact that I'm not playing double Rocky Helmet in this version. I'm playing double Giant Cape. The biggest reason for that is usually you want to make sure that if you're playing Arceus Dialga, that you're able to put things into range where Arceus can one-shot it. And that usually means Rocky Helmet. The reason why I'm choosing Giant Cape right now is because of the prevalence of red. And red is a card that really messes with your strategy playing Dialga or Arceus. There's a lot of breakpoints that are going to hit 140, 150. However, with Giant Cape, you can potentially stay out of range and maybe get that extra turn you need to win the game. And so that's why I'm playing Giant Cape, but I still am playing 1 red to hopefully reach those breakpoints that I previously couldn't without something like a Rocky Helmet. You could make the argument that taking out 1 potion for another red is very viable. So if you want to make changes to the deck, that could be an option. Another change that you could make is maybe you take the Shaman out and add in another red. Okay, that's an option. It just really depends how you kind of feel about the deck after playing it. But I do think that Arceus Dialga still has a future. The only issue that I run into is, to me, every deck that I just went over, in my opinion, has a little bit of a soft spot for the Rampardos deck that I showed towards the beginning of this video. And that's one issue that I don't know can, really be solved with like card choices. I just think that, Rampardos is just really good right now. And unfortunately, in the tournament results that I'm seeing, for some reason, people are still playing Lucario. And I think that you just don't need that anymore. I think red kind of fixes that issue. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. And again, looking at this deck, 3,420 pack points. So you're going to probably need a little bit of a budget to build this deck. Or maybe you already had this deck built, and so now it's easy because you only need a couple cards from the new set. So I hope you guys like seeing decks broken down like this, and I look forward to bringing more content like this as Ranked is officially here. And I can't wait to get on stream later on tomorrow, I guess technically, to try to be the first person to hit Master Ball. Let me know what you think about the decks, and you'll notice I did leave out some decks. There's still potential for stuff like Wug Trio, like I said, Giratina Magnezone. There's so many decks out there that are still good that we're still finding out about. But for now, these are the decks that I'm pretty comfortable showing you guys, and I hope that you enjoy them. I hope you get to jam some games with them, and I hope you get some W's. Thank you for letting me be background noise. Maybe you learned something, but until next time, peace.